Hi, I'm the Wolfman.
And I'm AD Venture.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And we are here today to talk about a small problem that many of us experience when we're out and about, especially for those of you who work in the outdoors. This is a boonie hat. Almost pretty much everybody who works in the outdoors has one of these, whether you wear it or not, made by various companies around the world. This one is British. We have one made by a Canadian company called Tilley, and they're made from all different companies. But here's the problem. You put on your hat, and as good as they are out in the wilderness, look at this. Look how floppy this is, you know? And then, like, if it's windy out, or if I'm driving my Jeep, it's gonna flip down over my eyes, or worse yet, it goes into dork mode, and it flips up like that. I do not want my students to see me looking like this when I'm teaching. So, AD Venture has come up with an amazing solution to this problem, to the floppy boonie hat problem.
And the great thing about this solution is it's extremely simple and inexpensive. What we do here is we take a boonie hat, any type of boonie hat, and you'll actually notice that we've put an actual wire through the brim itself to allow it to stay nice and formed. So for example, you'll see here, I've got a nice brim here to protect me from the sun, little opening here, but also protection over the ears in case it starts to rain, and over back here to make sure it doesn't come down onto my neck. So as you can see, this is nice and secure, and hey, oh, you know, the sun's changed its position. Look at that. I've just changed my hat. No problem.
That's pretty amazing. So before we begin this project, of course, we're gonna need some tools, right? So let's take a look at the tools that we're gonna need.
So some of the things that you're gonna need for this are wire. Now, any sort of wire will do. Thinner wire might work a little better depending on the brim of your hat, but also if you want a nice strong brim, you can use stronger gauge wire like 220 volt. What you'll also need is a wire clipper or perhaps a multi-tool, something that can cleanly slice the wires that you're planning on using. Now, very importantly, you need to know, well, how much wire do I need? What I recommend is first and foremost, you measure the circumference of the hat brim. Once you know exactly the total length of that brim, all you need to do is cut that amount of wire. Another thing I recommend is having a couple extra inches on each end to ensure that in case something happens, you've got enough left over. So for example, we have this wire here, and I would just measure it along here. And I would figure out that, yeah, that would basically be enough, but it's never a bad thing to have a few more inches. So you would then ensure, you would take this wire, you would find the back of the hat, and this right here is where we would start to insert the wire.
So like AD was saying, he likes to use a thinner wire to go through the brim of his hat. I prefer a much thicker wire. This is, again, 240 volt wire. So the first step to do, obviously this is not going to fit through, so I'm just going to take my wire and I'm going to take the sheath off of it. So how I do that is I just pull it and break it off. If for some reason it starts to come apart, which this one has just done, I grab my handy dandy multi-tool here and I will open it up and I will just score it, of course, away from myself, not towards myself, and of course anybody else, and just score that a little bit. And now what'll happen is it's going to make it so that I can just take that and pull it all apart. And slip, or if necessary, I can take the knife and go right inside the sheath there, pick it out a little bit, and start to take it out. Now here's the problem. Sometimes it can be a little bit time consuming to do this, but it is worth it if you want the thicker wire. You can get this thicker wire at any home hardware store, any kind of hardware store or electrical store. Sometimes if you're lucky you can even find it scrap, which is even better, you know, because this wire can be quite expensive. So there we go. As you can see, I'm starting to pull it apart. I'll swap out here from blade to pliers, which is going to give me a little bit more grip, and hopefully that will, there we go.
Now when you're in the process of feeding in the wire through the brim, just be patient and understand that sometimes it will take a little bit more time. And on top of that, you will have to slowly adjust where the wire is going so that it will continue to feed and not get stuck. One thing I actually do recommend is on the edge that you're feeding it in, that you make sure that you clip off as much metal as possible so that no sharp end catches the fabric. It can happen where if it's too sharp, it'll cut right through that fabric. So you want to make sure that it's nice and cut off at the end and nice and blunt so that you can properly feed this wire through the hat brim.
So now I have the wire all the way stuffed through. I have my excess here, which is always good to have the excess. I'm just going to cut that right off. So this is where you're going to take your cutters of some sort, and you're just going to give her a snap. You want to make sure, of course, you don't hurt your fabric of your hat. There we go. Now all I can do is I can just fiddle with that, push that inside so it's not visible, and that project is finished.
So there we have it. Nice modified boonie hat with wire in the brim.
That's right. And now the cool thing is if you're into archery and you wear one of these hats, the one thing I noticed, you draw that bow back and it's going to push in here. But look at that. I can just flip that bad boy right up out of the way. Look at that. Yeah. And then I can pull the bow back and my string is going to come right across. So, you know, I can change the sunlight. I can do anything we want on this. I really enjoy it. It's a great project. That took us all of about maybe 10 minutes worth of work. In fact, for me, it took more work ripping off, getting all of the casing off these wires to put them through. Now, just before we go, now this is bare copper wire. The wire that we used, it has a shield on it. So is there a difference when you put it through the brim of the hat?
Sometimes it's a little easier without the actual protection, but the problem is that sometimes the corrosion can occur with bare metal. So you want to basically figure out what is best for your hat as well as what material your hat is made of.
Yeah, because I mean, most of us, if you wear these on a regular basis, it's exposed to rain and snow and just the worst conditions nature can throw at you. And you're probably right, if this gets wet and stays wet, you're going to get oxidizing and green, right? Which I guess is okay if we have a green hat, but if you have like the white Tilly or the you know, the desert tan, you might get some bleeding on there. I guess that wouldn't be very cool.
Yeah, that's why it's never a bad thing to have some sort of insulation. And something that actually helps out as well is I was using wire with white insulation for a white hat. If I'd used black, it might appear. So you might also want to look for wire that actually matches the color of your boonie hat.
Wow, what a really cool idea. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to this video. I'm the Wolfman.
And I'm AD Venture.
Please consider subscribing.